must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, exactly 3 p.m., perhaps a minute past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi. This is Diaspora Dispatches. We get to look at the news making headlines across the continent. In the morning, we focused on a few topics that involved Kenya and also touched on the African continent. And, the war drums right now all over this continent. And so we took a look at that earlier there. So right now, let's just get into what is making headlines across other parts of the continent. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and thank you so much for finding time to join us this afternoon. And I have a lot in store for us. And we start with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Nobel Peace Laureate Daniel Mukwege has been placed under the guard of United Nations Security Forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo after death threats against him. The gynecologist and his colleagues have treated tens of thousands of victims, and he went on to share the Nobel Peace Prize in 2018. Mr. Mukwege said he received death threats after commenting on a massacre. It prompted hundreds of people to protest, calling for his protection. And then we move over to Ethiopia, and prosecutors in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa have filed terror charges against prominent opposition figure and journalist Eskinder Nega. State-affiliated Fana Broadcasting Corporation has reported Mr. Eskinder was among the 1,000 arrested following the violence that caused the death of at least 170 people after popular musician Hachalu Hundessa was murdered in late June. We move over to Mali, and a 3-day national consultation to the makeup of Mali's transitional government begins today in the capital Bamako. The talks come ahead of the deadline given by West African leaders for the appointment of civilian leaders by 15th of September. This follows consultative meetings held last weekend to agree on the terms of reference for today's talks. Pressure is mounting on the military rulers, the National Committee for the Salvation of the People, to set up a civilian led transitional government following Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's ouster on the 18th of August. Senior junta officials led by Colonel Assimi Goita have been reaching out to various key personalities in an effort to boost the credibility, support their base, and improve their public image. So they've been playing a lot of public relations there, I suppose. All right, very well. And then we move over to South Africa, where some of South Africa's biggest retailers have removed products by Tresemme following a row over an advert that has been condemned as racist. Now, the original advert for Tresemme product that was promoted by retailer Clicks had pictures of African hair labeled dry, dull, and damaged, while an example of white hair was described as fine and flat. First of all, this is all my hair. I don't see anywhere that is dry and damaged, so that is not even right. So Clicks responded to protest by apologizing, pulling the advert and removing Tresemme products, and now other companies have joined in. Woolworths said it had taken all Tresemme products from its shelves with immediate effect. Like, you are a product that is supposed to be selling in the African continent. You are in an African country, and you want to portray the thing that you're supposed to be promoting to be what? To be bad, the way they did that. I saw that advertisement, and of course the African hair was sort of the way they portrayed it was not really nice. We already know, the textures are different, but the manner in which this advert was portrayed there, I mean, it's just worked against whatever it is that Tresemme there was intending, the message they're intending to pass through. And they labeled African hair as dry, dull, and damaged. And you want to sell that product in Africa? Come on now. No, my hair is not dry, damaged, and it's just fine. I think it's beautiful. So yeah, I think it's well off that those leading retailers there had to remove that. Perhaps these white-owned businesses, they might learn something, and next time they might be, sensitive even as they try to, sell some of these products. And it's not the first time that a major, brand has been caught up in such a scandal. So come on. That is not right. So I hope they learn their lesson there, the Tresemme Hair Products and Company. And then we still stay with South Africa. And renowned South African human rights lawyer George Bizos has died at the age of 92. Mr. Bizos rose to prominence as a lawyer who represented Nelson Mandela and others who struggled against apartheid. He also played an integral role in drafting South Africa's constitution. Born in 1927 in Greece, Mr. Bizos arrived in South Africa as a World War II refugee with his father in 1941. He wanted to study medicine, but his application was rejected, so he opted for a law degree, and that ignited his political activism as ferocious opponent of the apartheid. And then we come back to Eritrea, and the Eritrean government has released on bail more than 20 prisoners who had been in detention for years because of their faith, as sources have told the BBC. The prisoners from Christian, evangelical and Pentecostal denominations are among those being held in a prison outside the capital Asmara. In Eritrea, only 4 religious groups are officially recognized. Religious groups are officially recognized, and that is the Christian Orthodox, Catholic Church, Lutheran Church and Sunni Islam. Since 2002, all other religious groups have lacked the legal basis to practice their faith publicly, including holding prayer meetings or weddings. This is according to the United States Commission on International Religious Freedoms. And then we head to Guinea, where Guinea's constitutional court, the highest in the West African country, has approved 82-year-old President Alpha Conde's bid for a third term in next month's election. Never mind, it's against the constitution. And the court also approved 11 other candidates, including the main opposition challenger, Selo Dalain Diallo. Now, there has been months of protest against Mr. Conde's re-election bid after he pushed through a constitutional change in a referendum in March, which allowed him to stand for a third term. At least 30 people are reported to have died in the protest. Mr. Conde was first elected in 2010 and then re-elected in 2015. And then we go to Ivory Coast, and Ivory Coast former ruling party, the Democratic Party of Cote d'Ivoire, African Democratic Rally, has threatened to boycott October's general election if conditions to make them fair and transparent are not met. Its executive secretary Maurice Kakua Goikahwe said the party wants the Electoral Commission changed. He said the party's presidential candidate Henry Konane Bedi will be formally presented to delegates in 12th September in Yamoussoukro, the country's political capital. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara is running for a controversial third term in the poll. And then we go to Cameroon, where also we have so much political tension in this continent. Goodness, and now also in Cameroon. And Cameroon Renaissance Movement has announced a nationwide protest on September 22nd to call for the departure of Paul Biya at the helm of the country. The head of state, Paul Biya, yesterday convened the electorates for the first ever regional elections, which will be held on December 6th. However, the leader of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, Professor Maurice Kamto, had warned any attempts to convene the electorate without revising the electoral code and solving the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions will be met with fierce protest. And the electorate was convened yesterday. And so Oliver Bebu Nisak, the spokesperson of Maurice Kamto, announced on Facebook that September 22nd will be the date for Cameroon Revolution, stating hashtag Paul Biya must go. September 22nd is a significant date in the recent history of Cameroon, as 3 years ago, peaceful protests swept across the Anglophone regions as the head of state was addressing the United Nations General Assembly. A week later, separatists marched on the streets to declare the restoration of what they term as Ambazonia, and the protests soon turned violent as security forces stepped in to quench the protest. Now, the crisis since then morphed to an armed conflict, which has claimed over 2,000 lives, and that is according to the United Nations official figures there. And then we head to some news about Biafra and the Biafra Nations Youth League, BNYL, has attacked former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kanu, for boasting that he can bring back Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, to Nigeria. Senator Kalu had on Tuesday pleaded with President Muhammadu Buhari's government to allow him convince Kanu to stop his Biafra agitation. National leader of the BNYL, Prince Will Chimeze Richard, in a statement forwarded to the Daily Post on Wednesday, said that some Igbo politicians are opportunists using the name of Biafra to seek relevance in Nigeria's politics. And he's also quoted as saying that Mr. Orji Kalu is saying, what Mr. Orji Kalu is saying is rhetoric. As an Igbo man, he knows deep down his heart that Biafra is a spirit. Kill any of us as the struggle continues. He added also that arrest any of us, the struggle still continues. Whoever that he may manage to convince to end the agitation, the struggle still continues. So there you go. And then we move over to South Sudan. Keep writing. I shall read some of the comments once I'm done with this. And the United Kingdom Special Representative to Sudan and South Sudan has pledged to persuade the leader of the National Salvation Front, Thomas Cirillo, to respect the cessation of hostilities agreement. Robert Fayweather says he has been in communication with General Cirillo and other parties following months of spontaneous armed violence in central Equatoria State. The attacks and counter-attacks have mainly been between SSPDF and NAS and SPLO-IO and ANS forces. These are all political armed groups there in South Sudan. And the recent widely condemned incidents that was on attack of a Toyota Land Cruiser carrying bodyguards of Vice President Dr. James Wani Iga along the Juba-Lobonok Road. It left 6 officers dead, the security detail of the Vice President. Now, and in case you don't know, South Sudan has 5 vice presidents, and the first vice president, I think is more senior than any of the rest of them, is Dr. Riek Machar, which I haven't heard from. Lately he's been very quiet. I don't know what's happening there in South Sudan, and even from President Salva Kiir. I hope that they're planning and plotting good things for the people of South Sudan, I hope. Set ablaze along Juba-Yei Road earlier last month. Attacks on civilians and security officers in mining areas near Juba have also reported attacks in the past week. So it's important that they come together and they agree to find peace for the people of South Sudan there. And then we go to Nigeria. And the Commissioner of Police of Enugu State, CP Ahmed Abdurrahman, on Thursday said the police were treating the detained indigenous people of Biafra member with a bullet wound to make him fit to face the trial. Abdurrahman said this in a statement signed by the command's public relations officer, ASP Daniel Ndukwe, and made available to newsrooms in Enugu. He said the allegations by publication that the suspect was chained and left to bleed to death was a piece of misleading information, adding that the public should disregard it. Abdurrahman also said that the suspect was taken to the hospital for treatment to enable him to be fit enough to face criminal prosecution alongside 4 others. The commissioner said the 4 others had already been charged to court and remanded in correctional service custody for the offences of conspiracy, a treasonable felony, and murder. He said the police neither demanded money for their bail of the suspect, nor was his grandfather, or any other member of his family arrested, detained, and released after extorting 55,000 nairas at Central Station there in Enugu, he alleged. And so, these are the youth that, remember that time that IPOB youth were meeting somewhere, and the security details there in Nigeria stormed that meeting and arrested. Remember when, was it 11 people died and 3 police officers? So the ones who were arrested, one of them had a bullet wound, I think, on his leg. And so there has been claims that this person is dead because they've not been able to be presented, or the members of their family have not been able to to see him. So the police is coming out. They're saying that, he's okay. They've been treating him. And so they're waiting for him to stabilize so that he can be able to face this trial. These are the youths that were arrested. So the police are still detaining 4 of them. So 3 are okay. But this one had a bullet wound on his leg, so he's been treated. And then after he gets better, according to the police there in Enugu, they say that they will go and face a very serious, charges there. Offenses of conspiracy, a treasonable felony. I mean, when you hear the word treason, that is very serious there. So I don't know what's going to happen there to these young IPOB members there. So, but that is the latest from the CP Ahmad Abdurrahman. That is the Commissioner of Police in Enugu State. All right, and the latest in that story. And then we head over to Uganda, where bloggers, internet publishers, and broadcasters have until October 5th to seek permits from the Ugandan Communications Commission in new regulations that tighten state control on the dissemination of information. Now, Ugandans have criticized the new directive coming at a time the country is headed for a general election in February next year, with campaigns having kicked off, though unofficial due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The electoral body has directed that political parties conduct scientific campaigns online through the media and other non-contact means as a preventative measure to stop the spread of coronavirus. And this is what the Ugandan Communications Commission said, that all persons currently offering or planning to commence the provision of online data communications and broadcasting services, including but not limited to blogs, online television, radios, like what you're doing right now, online newspapers, audio over internet protocol, internet portal, TV, video on demand, digital audio, radios, and television. Internet, basically, if you're going to use internet in a nutshell, all right, and internet, that all of that to obtain authorization from the Ugandan Communications Commission before providing such services to the public. The statement released on Monday by the regulator now says. So, see, now this is the problem, and we've been talking about this problem in Uganda there because we know the media is highly controlled by state, and as we know, the country is going for its election in February, early next year. And so the government, or rather the Electoral Commission in Uganda, had said due to the risk that comes and, the threat by COVID-19, people or the political parties or politicians cannot go ahead and carry out their campaigns as you would normally by holding rallies and all that, all right, because of the threat, that comes with COVID-19. So they said now, the election and the campaign will be scientific. And if you watch this station over and over, I think this is something that we talked about. And personally, I think the elections in Uganda are just bogus. Like, that is just what I think. All right. But there are people there who still go and vote, and that's okay. I think it's the democratic right. But putting democracy and Uganda in the same sentence, that does not even go together. But there's a semblance of democracy there. But now here's the thing. So now the Electoral Commission in Uganda had advised the political parties and the politicians to campaign through the media. So that is supposed to be the scientific aspect of it. So you campaign through television, you campaign through radio, you campaign through the newspaper. So basically, the newspapers in Uganda right now are supposed to look like campaign posters, because if you're going to campaign, then that is what they'll turn into. And then social media, of course, or the new media has become the best platform, for even anybody to pass out any form of information. So I think that has been going on very well, because the ruling party in Nigeria really was happy about this. Like, it was the only party that agreed with these new measures by the Electoral Commission in Uganda. Opposition didn't like it. So I think perhaps the opposition might have gotten away around it and were beginning to really utilize these platforms very well. So now the government apparently now comes out and said, no, wait 1 minute. I think now, before you even post anything, before you blog, literally before you disseminate any kind of information on social media, then you have to go to the Ugandan Commission's authority to get some permission. What is that? So obviously, as we know, the conventional media in Uganda is highly controlled by the state. So the opposition was not going to get an opportunity from the national broadcaster, from the national anything, because they fear even the privately owned, newspapers and radio stations and all that. The government still just looks at it, like has its hands on it. So a lot of times they've been closed down. A lot of times they've been even threatened with closure, and others have been closed while transmitting anything that has to do with opposition. So obviously, the opposition was not going to get a very fair play when it comes to the media in Uganda, which is highly controlled by the state. So I think they've been using the social media or the new media as ways of, campaigning and all of that. So the government now is coming in and saying, you know what, that also we need to control. So I don't know. And we were just having this conversation a while ago, and I think President Museveni is just pushing it a little too. It's just pushing it too much. And sometimes when you push people too much to the wall, they're going to say, hey, back off. We kind of need to breathe here. So you're taking that, you're controlling that, and now you're here, you want to control this. It's not going to work. So that is the problem there that faces Uganda. It's just, all right, it's just interesting there. It is very interesting there. So yes, keep writing. Ina Hassan, I see you in the house. Chibueze Emmanuel. Let me finish this news here. I think in the meantime, let's pray for Uganda and the elections that are coming up next year. And even as we do that, a court in Uganda's Western District of Ntungamo remanded the country's State Minister for Labour, Nwesigwa Rukutana, to prison until September 15th, 2020, when it will hear his bail application. First of all, I don't know why this person is still the Minister of Labor, or is still Minister of anything there anymore. This is a person who wanted to shoot people, and it was captured on video. Why is he still a minister? He's been remanded until 15th. That is when his bail will be heard. Why is he still holding an office? Do we not have a chapter of integrity and leadership there in Uganda? I know we have one here that really has been very much abused. Our politicians and our leaders act as if it does not exist. But this is reason enough that this person should be fired. President Museveni, why is your minister in custody until the 15th? Why is he still enjoying, state, title? Why is he still a minister? This person is supposed to have been fired. So Mr. Rukutana and his escorts were arrested last Saturday on allegations of shooting and injuring Dan Remburingi Kirio in a brawl connected to party primaries. The victim was admitted in critical condition and his vehicle damaged during the incident. This is a hooligan. This is a person who should not be walking around with a vehicle that has the country's flag, high grades. Results released on Sunday for grade 12 examinations for the 2019-2020 school calendar showed that 33,727 students sat for the national test, which I think it's a good increase in number. Somalia is just trying to normalize after years of war and the conflict. So compared to 2 years ago, the numbers is a bit low, so that is an increase. So it's a good thing. So of the 33,000, of these 25,177 students, representing about 75%, passed the exams and qualified to join tertiary institutions, which I also think is a very good thing. But of the 8,550 who failed, most of them are from the Benadir, the metropolitan region that includes Mogadishu. Now questioned over the mass failure in Mogadishu, Education Minister Goda Barre blamed students and teachers. Now this is what their Magoha said. Our CS for Education here is called Magoha, and he's quite a bright person. His CV is over 80 pages. So, but this is what their Magoha said. The Minister of Education said that learners, they spend too much time smoking tobacco and recording TikTok videos, while tutors were of poor quality. I think the TikTok part is really funny, but I would understand why he would say the tutors there are of poor quality. With the war and the conflict that has been going on in Somalia, a lot of things have been affected. So it is possible that even some of the teachers who are teaching are not really qualified as they should. So that is understandable. But I think with time, they will produce more qualified, teaching staff and all that. When the country continues to stabilize, then they can have that. But this thing of the students spend so much time smoking tobacco and recording TikTok, that is why they failed. I don't know why it's hilarious, but it's just quite interesting. All right, so now let's just talk. All right. Thank you so much. Let me read a few of your comments and then we can get into the stories. Che McCarthy, Paul Biya continues with the genocide of the southern Cameroonians, that is the Amazonians. So now here's the thing, McCarthy. Professor Maurice Kamto, who is the official opposition leader there in Cameroon, has come out and declared 22nd of September this month to be the day that will mark a revolution that will finally remove President Paul Biya, who has been president of Cameroon for the last 38 years, I think until August. So now, where is that story? Because I read it just a while ago. I don't know how this is going to work. Because why? Remember, Mr. Kamto was arrested in 2018 after he protested those bogus elections that happened there in Cameroon. And before that, of course, President Paul Biya had mutilated the constitution and changed the constitution so that it allows another term. The term years were increased to 7. So each term is 7 years. So he started another one in 2018 there. So of course the elections were mad with a lot of cheating and bribery and all of that and violence, like a lot. So in any sane democracy, that is the kind of election that Maraga would have disqualified completely. By Maraga, I mean the Chief Justice or the institutions of the country, all right? But, you know, Paul Biya continued with his reign there in Cameroon. And now, after days and weeks of protest there, Professor Maurice Kamto was jailed and was released from jail last year. Towards the end of September last year, they had the national dialogue. Remember the national dialogue that President Paul Biya just organized to have by himself and with himself, because the people who were supposed to be a part of this dialogue were not even there. You know, one of the things that they were supposed to be discussing and finding a solution for was the conflict between President Paul Biya's government and the Anglophone region and the leadership of Anglophone, as we know right now. They're all in jail and they're serving a life sentence. They've been trying to overturn that and challenge that in the court there, but it has not been very successful so far. But their lawyers are working on it. And I remember one of the lawyers there, begging France to intervene. You wonder why France will be the one to come in and talk to President Paul Biya, but we know the connections and all of that. So now, of course, at that time, Maurice Kamto was in jail, and when this national dialogue was being finished, the day it was being concluded, that is when Maurice Kamto was removed from prison. That is when he was released. So he did not get to participate in this national dialogue, and that's why I'm saying that that is one national dialogue that President Paul Biya had with himself, by himself, and driving his own agenda, and he really wasn't keen on finding the problems or finding solutions to the problems that plague the general Cameroon and also the conflict with the Anglophone there. And so since then, things haven't changed much at all. And so even the opposition leader there was in jail, was a political prisoner there. So he did not get to participate. He did not get to air his concerns on what is ailing Cameroon, what are some of the things that should be urgently be addressed in the country. He was not there as the official opposition of a country. Think about it. As the official opposition of a country, he was not there. So the day the national dialogue talk was ending, that is the day President Paul Biya said, now get the professor out of prison, let him go home. So he did not even get to participate in this election. So and the national dialogue. So we've seen lately, a couple of weeks ago, Maurice Kamto came out and said that, as much as we are supposed to be going to an election sometimes in December, but I think it is important for the government to address the issue and the humanitarian crisis that continues, in the Anglophone region, the burning of the villages, the killings there, because now even the Amazonians, they have now resorted into other ways even to earn a living. I was just reading another article earlier on that said even now, a few of their youth, because of the lack of food and hunger and lack of jobs and all that, they've decided now we're going to engage in cattle rustling. So this has brought in other aspects of insecurity that is not very good. So now as we speak, this of course, the latest agitation started, about 3 years ago. So at this date that Maurice Kamto has chosen to start the Cameroon Revolution, as he calls it, he has picked September 22nd, and September 22nd is very significant in the sense that this date in the recent history of Cameroon, as of 3 years ago, a peaceful protest swept across the Anglophone regions. I was telling you about, the teachers started it, and I think the lawyers, because they're being forced to teach using French. And this is an Anglophone part of the country. They don't speak French. They don't understand French. They probably speak 2 words like I do, all right? So they really don't know. So they protested. You cannot have us speak in a language you don't understand. We are teachers. We can't teach it. We don't know it. Our children do not understand it. Our courts, the lawyer said we cannot go to court and try to do cases there with French. We don't speak French. We are from the Anglophone region. So that sparked another wave of protests there. And so that started on the 22nd of September, about 3 years ago. And a week later, Amazonians marched on the streets to declare the restoration of what they call as Amazonia land. And the protest soon turned violent as security forces stepped in to quench. So that hasn't stopped. So according to UN official figures, over 2,000 people have died. And I'm sure for the people who come from those sides of Cameroon, you bring us these reports every day, these people who are being killed from over there. So probably the number is even much higher. So what I'm looking to see is whether President Paul Biya will agree for this protest to happen, of what Maurice Kamto is calling a Cameroon revolution. So Professor Maurice Kamto, as I said, there is the official opposition figure in Cameroon. President Paul Biya has been in power for the last 38 years. Just forget even the Anglophone crisis there. Even the young Cameroonians there are increasingly getting very uncomfortable with the leadership of Cameroon. Have you seen even his cabinet? They're just old people. I think when they meet, and I have nothing against old people, but when I tell you they're old people, like in their 80s and late 70s, he does not have. It's like a home, for the old when they meet in these cabinet meetings there. And so even the younger, generation of young Cameroonians there who want change, who want development, whose issues are not being addressed properly because they don't even have the right people in this very important, dockets that could really identify and are up to date and really knows what's ailing, the general public there in Cameroon. Even they've started getting agitated. And just a couple of months ago, I think we were talking about another protest that was organized by young people there in Cameroon. And they're saying, no, enough is enough. I mean, we've had enough of President Paul Biya, but I guess that was meted, with a lot of force there from the Cameroonian government. So it did not really get a lot of attention there. So we see the official opposition leader in Cameroon coming out and saying, even as you sit here, trying to prepare for election, we cannot go to this election until the issue of the Anglophone is sorted. Are we going to allow them a referendum? If not, then what other ways can we use, and what other dialogue even can we use to ensure that we are able to solve this crisis that now is just in dire condition? When you see images and things coming out from the Anglophone part of Cameroon, things are not okay. army is killing people. And just earlier on, a few months ago, we saw how the army raided another village there, massacred women and children. So these are just things that the government of Fulbia has to address. These are things that Professor Maurice Kamto is saying, can we talk about this? Can we address these issues, because they are important? So as much as we would like to keep sweeping this matter under the rug, the Anglophone issue is not going away. Their call for secession is not going away. So we better just address this matter once and for all before we pretend to go to another election, which, by the way, we know is not going to be very free and fair, but you insist on going to it anyway. So he had given a warning a couple of days ago that certain things should not take place, and if they do, then that will trigger them to go out in the streets there and protest. So they're protesting, and they've organized this protest that is meant to be happening on the 22nd of September. But what I'm just waiting to see if at all President Paul Biya will even agree for this to happen. All right, he missed an opportunity when he set up that national dialogue last year. He should have had the official leader of opposition, to be part of that dialogue. He should have had leaders of the Anglophone region that represents the voice of their people to come in there and speak, so that they're able to open up, and so that they're able to come and reason together and see, all right, so your demands, is this something that we can talk about? Is this something that we can solve? Some of the issues you're raising, which are quite legitimate, that part of Cameroon is well underfunded. They don't even have enough schools, hospitals. The last that were existing there were banned. We've been seeing these images all over the place there. So there has been a systematic, discrimination on this part of, and you still insist that, it doesn't matter, I'll still have you. If the marriage is abusive, then you just let, perhaps the spouse decides if they want to be with you or not. But, that's just for the people of Cameroon there to decide. So I don't know if President Paul Biya will agree to this. Will even agree to this protest to take place. They're supposed to be taking place on the 22nd of September under Cameroon Revolution, stating, and the hashtag is Paul Biya must go. And I said they're outside of the Anglophone crisis. Even the younger generation there in Cameroon are tired. If you're born 38 years ago, I'm not even 38 years, I'm heading there in a few years, maybe 2 or thereabout. The only person you know is President Paul Biya. Can you imagine? That's the only person you know. And his leadership is not putting more food on your table. His leadership is not improving your quality of life. His leadership is not making things any better for you. It gets to a point where, you just want better. And right now, even just the general public in Cameroon, they're saying, no. Wait 1 minute. I think that perhaps we should just have a change of leadership and see what this would look like, and see if it will be better for us as a people, and if it will move our country forward. All right, Ina Hassan, you're saying you're right. President should not be a nursing home for the elderly dictators. Yeah. Let me tell you, if you see, I don't know if the production can find those images of President Paul Biya's ministers. They're like from late 70s, I'm telling you, to 80s. So when they meet, I think they're all having their naps and just drinking their milkshake or just enjoying their beers. I don't know. And talk about golf and other things that older people enjoy most, because they're out of touch with what is happening on the ground. How can such a cabinet address issues that are very urgent to the majority, the bigger population, which is the youth? They're not able to, because they're completely out of touch. They're way gone. So at least President Paul Biya should have balanced, even in his cabinet there. Himself, how old is he now? I think he's 87. Is he? How old is President Paul Biya? When you see him even in meetings, remember when he got to a point where the former president of Zimbabwe, late Robert Mugabe. It became very embarrassing when you see him in meetings in the African Union there, in the United Nations. He's just sitting there. The minute he sits down, he's falling asleep, because his faculty just can't keep up, was failing him. And that is the case with President Paul Biya. We saw Robert Mugabe falling, doing steps and all that, which was just a bad image, and I felt so bad every time that happened. But that is also the case with Paul Biya. So what I'm saying is, perhaps Mr. Paul Biya needs some good rest. He can enjoy the few remaining years of his life. I think God has blessed him with a long life. He should have lived past 80 years. I think that's a good age, but he needs to perhaps take just a back seat and just see, usher in a new leadership in that country and see what else, what else can they bring, to improve the lives of the people of Cameroon, right? Okay, so I'll just be following that protest on the 22nd of September. A couple of days away, about 11 days away. All right, let's see if at all President Paul Biya will allow that protest to happen. Now let's talk about Ina Hassan. Have you heard about that news from Uganda? Before we look at Biafra, some news I had from Biafra and what some young people there in Biafra are saying in regards to what that governor, former governor, now senator, he said there. That he wants to go and he can actually bring back Nnamdi Kanu. A lot of young people there from Biafra were not pleased to be this matter. That is the wife of Paul Biya. Look at that hair. Dr. Matanga knows how to describe that hair. I will not even get into it. Yeah, I think it's quite something. It's just a piece of art sitting on top of her head there. It's lovely. And the color is just quite interesting. All right. Now, in Uganda, as I said there earlier, you were not here. I don't know if you heard about this news from Uganda, where now the opposition or anybody who is blogging, basically, if you're using social media and you're going to publish anything, you're going to blog anything, you're going to broadcast anything, like you're even going, even if you're going to go Facebook Live, they want to just click live and you just go live and say something that even attaches on anything that looks like information to do with elections and campaign, then the government of Uganda requires you to go get a license from the Uganda Communications Commission. Remember, the scientific elections that are supposed to be happening in Uganda are scientific in the sense that the conventional ways of campaign rallies right now, you can't have that because of the COVID-19. So the candidates and the politicians, you're supposed to campaign using television, radio, newspapers, and other new media, which is the social media, right? So, of course, the government has full control of the conventional media, but I think they thought they had the opposition by their and I think the opposition has been doing very well in terms of mobilizing and disseminating information in social media. So the government also is going for that and is saying, before you even broadcast anything, before you do a video, before you blog, before you share, basically, before you tap on your phone and go to social media, you should go get a permit from the Ugandan Commission, their Communications Commission there. And, I know Kenya, we still have some work to do when it comes to the freedom of the media, but we enjoy a fairly good atmosphere in terms of the freedom of expression as embodied in our Constitution, Chapter 4, under the Bill of Rights, and Article 34. It contains the freedom of media, and Article 32 there, the freedom of expression. So the government, to a very large extent, allows us to enjoy those freedoms, all right, because, but in Uganda, it's quite the opposite. In Tanzania also, it's quite the opposite. So I think that's why they don't even like our media houses so much, because as we will go there and we report it as it is, we'll talk, we'll call it as it is, but there you can't do that. So now our president President Museveni now seeks to control. Of course, the Communications Commission is not talking by itself. I mean, obviously, the government has, told it to put these things in order there. So in case you think about blogging or internet publishing anything, you have to go get permission from the Uganda Communications Commission. Hassan, I don't know what you make of that, but there you go. So now, the Biafran Nations Youth League has attacked former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, right, for boasting that he can bring back Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. IPOB to Nigeria, Senator Kalu said on Tuesday pleaded with President Muhammadu Buhari's government to allow him to convince Kanu to stop his Biafra agitation. The national leader of BNLY, Prince Will Chimeze Richard, in a statement forwarded to the Daily Post on Wednesday, said that some Igbo politicians are opportunists using the name of Biafra to seek relevance in Nigerian politics. What Orji Kalu is saying is rhetoric. This is what Prince said. As an Igbo man, he knows deep down his heart that Biafra is a spirit. Kill any of us, the struggle still continues. Arrest any of us, the struggle still continues. And whoever that he may manage to convince to end the agitation, the struggle still continues. So that is what these young people there of the Biafra Nations Youth League said. And so they were not very amused by those sentiments there of the former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, which I think right now he's the senator of the same state, right? Okay, very well. Okay, so some other news as well. In South Sudan, and the United Kingdom Special Representative to Sudan and South Sudan has pledged to persuade the leader of the National Salvation Front, Thomas Cirillo, to respect the cessation of hostilities agreement. Robert Fairweather says he has been in communication with General Cirillo and other parties following months of spontaneous armed violence in central Equatoria State. Now, Thomas Cirillo is a very important figure when it comes to the stakeholders there in South Sudan, and he was not part of the people that signed the peace deal. He did not sign the revitalized peace deal in 2018, whose deadlines and kept shifting. Last year shifted twice, was supposed to happen in May, shifted to November, shifted to now. It happened. They signed that peace deal in February this year. And so Thomas Cirillo refused to sign the 2018 revitalized peace agreement, so he was not part of it. But remember, this is a man that has his troops down there in South Sudan, a huge number that cannot just be wished away. So he is a very important figure, that is required to also come to the table and have talks with the rest of everybody else so that the peace in South Sudan can hold. So his part of the army has been engaging, and of course others have been engaging on this continued conflicts that we've been seeing in South Sudan, and even since the signing of that peace agreement in February, nothing much has changed. We've seen the communal fights continue, we've seen the killings continue. Matter of fact, it's a very worrying information that has been coming there. Even the soldiers that were set in these specific cantonment sites had left the site because of the bad conditions in this site. The soldiers were hungry now, and nobody was taking care of them because South Sudan has so many other problems to deal with. But the problem is they left these camps with their guns, went back to the communities. So now when they go back to the communities with their guns, they start setting out these very small gangs of young people around the villages, and now we've seen the continued under the spiking of the communal violence there in South Sudan. I think peace in South Sudan still continues to be very delicate, and there has been a lack of a will from the leadership, and we see now from the stakeholders, somebody like Thomas Cirillo, I think keeps even bringing back everybody, steps back, even in the gains that have been made in terms of moving South Sudan forward and finding a lasting peace there in South Sudan. Never mind about the top leadership, which all their decisions are just laced with ego and just selfishness, and they don't do anything that they're looking at it from this perspective of the people of South Sudan and what they really want. They usually look at it from what am I gaining, what are my people gaining, the few at the top, not what the majority of the citizens of South Sudan stand to gain when South Sudan finally realizes stability and peace. So the leadership in South Sudan, I've said it before and I say it now and I'll repeat it again the next day, South Sudan leaders there have a lot of ego. South Sudan leaders there are quite self-centered. They really don't care about the people of South Sudan. When you just sit down and listen to the things they fight about, has nothing to do with the benefit of the larger population of South Sudan. All of them, President Salva Kiir, his first vice president, Dr. Riek Machar, and the rest of them. And now we see this other fellow, Thomas Cirillo, who also refused to be part of that deal among other rebels there because they don't want South Sudan to be set to a path of peace. And it's interesting that the United Kingdom's special representative has been in secret talks with Cirillo, trying to convince him to join in. I don't know. These secret meetings sometimes, they're not very good, because we know from the reports that have been presented to the United Nations several times on South Sudan, there are a lot of multinational companies from China, from the US, from the UK that have benefited in the chaos that has been in South Sudan. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is somebody from the Western world that is backing somebody like Thomas Cirillo and telling him to continue holding this hardline stand so that South Sudan is not able to fully realize, stability and peace, because that is how they get to benefit. They get to sneak out the natural resources because there are no structures of accountability in place. And when you're busy trying to put out fires in all parts of the country, you not really focus on other things that really matters. So the country of South Sudan, they keep taking advantage of the chaos there. And now they come in and they're supporting the peace deal and they're talking with so and so. I think this backyard talks should not be encouraged. Let IGAD talk to Thomas Cirillo. Let the African Union, which have failed, IGAD, have other member states have stakes and have been mentioned widely in terms of fueling the war in South Sudan. But still, can we find somebody in the presence of other people to at least we have other witnesses that say, okay, this is what we talked about, this is what you told him, and this is what he agreed to, and this is what he wants, and all that. But now you're talking to him, and then you're coming and saying, I talked to him, and I'll try to convince him to come to the table, blah, blah, blah. What is at stake? What did you tell him he will benefit, after he comes? What was the agreement? What is the background story? So as much as, this person, this ambassador means well, but still, I don't know, because these Westerners, I don't trust them sometimes 100%, because they always look at everything, especially from the continent, from the perspective of what is my country benefiting, what is the interest. Should we look at this matter like this? Will it serve the interest, of my country, the foreign policy of, say, this guy comes from UK? Will it be in line with the foreign policy of UK? And what does UK stands to benefit? Should we encourage this route of finding a solution? So I think, but if you can convince Thomas Cirillo to come to the table and solve the problems there that plague South Sudanese state, Ahmed Abdurrahman on Thursday, that is today, said the police were treating the detained indigenous people of Biafra member with a bullet wound to make him fit for trial. Remember that meeting that was done for whatever reason. They can do it without, harming anybody and without anybody having to lose their lives. So I think that is where my bone of contention was, the IPOB youth were meeting and the police they were alerted. So instead of just going there and dispersing, they thought they were sympathizing with, the IPOB young people there who were killed. So the police, this person, the family has not been able to access him, and they're saying that the reason why he's still kept and he's not been able to be presented to court is still his nursing a bullet wound on his leg. So once he's fit, then he can be able to face the full trial. So they're facing him and 4 others. And they're facing, among other charges, offenses of conspiracy, a treasonable felony, and murder. So they'll be charged with murder. But were they caught with weapons? What is really happening here? Because the last I checked, I think the police officers are the ones who shot people there in that meeting. But there you go. All right, let me read a few of your comments, and then I think I'll just leave now. I have about 5 minutes or so. Chiboeze, thank you so much. Eze Kelechi, you're saying nothing can stop. Nothing can stop Biafra. And Ina Hassan is saying there was a discussion earlier on this topic about the role of media. I guess the Uganda's action is extreme and aimed to curtail the opposition campaigning. Absolutely. And I don't know. Uganda there and elections and freedoms and all that, it just makes my mind just tired. So let's just leave that alone. FC Chooks, you're saying nothing can stop Biafra coming. Zoo country called Nigeria must fall. Okay, all right. So I keep writing, and you're saying, you will wonder at times that South Sudan would have been better off being part of Sudan. I know, and even like the people of Biafra and Amazonia and other parts of this continent that feel they'll be better off, moving from these countries. I think South Sudan will be a very good case study, and not in the best way, but perhaps, how not to after you get independence, because South Sudan there, as I said, the leadership there is the problem. And I think that is for South Sudanese, but the leadership is the problem, and sometimes they take very hardlining positions, and that has nothing to do with the benefit of the people of South Sudan. And I'm still very upset that even months after signing that peace deal in February, South Sudan is still wants money to take care of refugees in camps. Why do you still have refugees in camps? Why can't the people of South Sudan? Why can't the government facilitate them going back to their villages, perhaps, helping them rebuild their lives from their homes, from their villages there? Why do we still need to feed South Sudanese in a refugee camp in their own country? And yet that peace deal was signed in February. These are questions that we have to ask. And these are things that we have to talk about, because these people, their security is not guaranteed. They try going to their villages. Some communal violence starts, they're forced to go back, to the refugee camps. And I think it's so unfair. And in the continent, South Sudanese are just one of the people that have been left to suffer under the mercy of the leadership that is just full of ego and personal interest they don't have the interest of the people at heart. Otherwise, you would have ensured that the people of South Sudan are safe. They feel safe going back to their homes, and then whatever help that will come their way that you will ask for, which I think a lot of international community will be willing and ready to help, will come in and will help people of South Sudan to start rebuilding their lives, not feeding them in the camps. In fact, there shouldn't be any South Sudan in the camp there in their own country. I think it's a shame. And President Salva Kiir should be coming out and addressing these issues, quickly, because it's not fair. It's not fair for the people of South Sudan. It's not fair for those children. And then these humanitarian, organizations from the Western world, they come out and they take these images, even in Somalia, people of Africa in a very undignified way. They go out there, they make money with it. I as an African, it's very disgusting to see that. All right, so I hope that the leadership of South Sudan will look into that. They've passed a deadline where Parliament was supposed to be was supposed to be dissolved so that they're able to have a new parliament. President Salva Kiir has not done that yet. So still a few things that needs to be sorted out there so that South Sudan can be set to a path of peace and stability. All right, I'm exhausted. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Miriam Ugu. To have a very lovely afternoon there. It is 4 p.m. here in Nairobi. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.